perhaps. Well, alongside the economy and jobs, immigration is one of the most divisive issues in politics at the moment, and many say the two go hand in hand. So are migrant workers a boon to our economy, or are there too many people here already, stretching our services to breaking point? Our reporter Tim Parker has been to an employment centre in Derby that's funded by council money and helps local people and migrant workers to find jobs.
This small, busy centre finds itself on the front line of what's now the biggest debate in British politics. The Jet Centre has helped migrants from many different places over 13 years, the majority now from Eastern Europe and the Baltics.
Our core purpose is to improve economic prosperity within the local community. So we help in a whole range of ways. We work with young people, with unemployed people, with adults, with women. But the whole concept is to get them to do something better, to give them aspiration, and for them to get long-term meaningful jobs.
This is one of the quieter days here at the Jet Centre in Normanton in central Derby. People queuing in there to get advice in here from staff and trained volunteers on how to get a job. Neringa Kolindate is from Lithuania. She first used the centre to help find work, but now volunteers there to improve her own skills.
I'm on a job seeker allowance, the same like all these people. I'm the same looking for a job, but I think it's better to not just to look into the home and looking, just you can do like a volunteer jobs it's an easier way to going up, I think.
Critics may question spending £118,000 of council money to help people not from the area to find work, but the centre insists it's there for everyone in the community.
The money is there for disadvantaged local people. Yeah. So I think it's a myth to say it's only for the new arrivees. There are lots of other people here who access our services.
The council insists the money boosts the local economy.
But we know it works because we know in terms of the city we're creating over 2,500 jobs a year. People are obviously accessing these jobs. Those jobs are at all levels, from engineers down to somebody who has to make the tea, if you like, and clean the building, because the jobs are at all levels in the city, and this is what it's about, creating opportunity for people to get into employment, get into a job and contribute to our vibrant city.
But whether it's value for money or not, with immigration so high up the political agenda, centres like this will continue to find themselves in the spotlight.
Alan Graves, who's the East Midlands chair of UKIP, has joined us. Alan, a job centre funded by the council, finding work for East European migrants must be UKIP's worst nightmare, isn't it?
Absolutely, of course it is. The interesting thing about this subject is we are talking about immigration, which is the UKIP effect. These parties here that we've got on my left have tried to hide the immigration subject under the carpet.
Why would something like this in Derby, though, be your worst nightmare?
It's not my worst nightmare. I
Well,
think it's great.
It was.
£118,000 of taxpayers' money should not be spent on trying to find Eastern Europeans jobs when we have 2.5 million people unemployed in the country. 600,000 of them are Eastern Europeans.
OK, well, Chris, as a Derby MP, what do you make of all of this? We know the amount of money that's being spent, and the council leader says it's money well spent.
Well, I mean, the funding for this particular project goes back to 2007. It came via the European Social Fund. Funnily enough, at the time, actually, when Alan was on the council, and he was quite happy with the
representing
funding.
the Labour Party.
It was indeed, with that money going to JAT. But the important thing is this isn't just about actually finding work for migrant workers. This is about finding employment opportunities for anybody who's out of work. And I think that is money well spent, actually.
This is actually
Nigel?
money for the New Communities Fund. So you can't say it's for anybody, Chris. It's for Eastern Europeans.
Well, no,
they are the New Communities
Fund. To help
Fund.
anybody, and they open their doors to one and all.
But the £118,000 is directly affecting Eastern Europeans. They are the new communities in the Derby area.
It's helping them, is what you're saying?
Yes, the council have just announced 350 job losses. Okay, why don't we spend £118,000?
Alan, that you're looking at this on the wrong end of the
Why
telescope.
don't we spend £118,000 on those 350 people that are being made redundant from the council? It's the same council.
Well, no. Look, I think really the key issue here is actually ensuring that exploitative employers don't use migrant labour to drive down the wage rates. And we've heard really horrendous stories about how migrant workers are being exploited, being paid below the minimum wage, living in overcrowded accommodation. And that is actually also, in certain circumstances, of a knock-on impact on the wage rates of everybody else.
Nigel,
that's what we should be tackling, and that's what Alan ought to be
Nigel, that's what you
complaining
should be
about.
tackling. He's saying you've been very active on this issue. What do you think about this? You seem to be caught in the middle of these two here.
And I would say, I mean, clearly I'd rather have people being found work than living on benefits, and if migrants are here legally, I think we want them.
And this centre is finding them jobs, so that's keeping them off benefits.
Yeah, that's kind of probably better than doing nothing. But I would say, free movement within the EU, which I have great concerns about, is free movement to come and work, not to come and claim benefits. Now, we've seen a government reform since Christmas, which basically says, A, you can't claim out-of-work benefits for the first 3 months you're here, and B, after 6 months, if you've not found work, then you should be going back home again. So it'd be interesting to see whether any of that actually happens.
Is it a particular problem here in the East Midlands?
I'm not sure it's a particular problem here more than elsewhere. Maybe in parts of Lincolnshire there's been perhaps some larger issues, but I think this is a problem where we have, as Alan said, 2.4 million people are unemployed, 1 million young people. We need to be finding them the job opportunities and not trying to import cheap, low-skilled labour from overseas. And
if the council wasn't going to help these people, Alan, where are they supposed to go for help?
Well, the real issue is that we don't want mass immigration in this country. Mass immigration is directly related to being a member of the EU. These two parties want to remain in the EU, and so do the Liberal Democrats. UKIP are the only party that actually have a solution. We want proper border controls by coming out of the EU.
OK, well, let me just tell you about this centre in question, Jet. They've actually given us a breakdown of the people who use their services there. 30% Asian, 30% Eastern European, 40% white British.
But do you think
so they're helping lots of people?
They are
quite clearly.
Absolutely, they are helping lots of people. But
is there anything wrong with that?
Do you think it's fair, though, that we spend £118,000 of taxpayers' money not to the existing population? This is targeted for the new communities, mainly Eastern Europeans. It says so in their report.
You worried about the threat of UKIP in Derby North, Chris?
Well, I mean, I think what was regrettable really is Alan sort of is playing to the lowest common denominator, trying to play on people's fears and not really tackling the real issues. We are a country that is made up of immigration. We've benefited from immigration down the ages, and Alan's little
on the doorstep when you're out there in Derby North. What are people saying to you and your constituency about immigration?
People are concerned about the cost of living. People are concerned about whether they're going to be able to keep a roof over their head. People are concerned about whether they're going to have a job at the end of the year.
And mass immigration affects everything that you've just talked about.
No, but the point is, and I'd be interested whether Nigel would actually support Ed Miliband's call for a closing of the loophole that allows employment agencies to exploit these migrant workers and other workers, it has to be said, to actually pay below the going rate.
Maybe if your parties,
Nigel, would you support that?
I don't support any exploitation, so clearly if people are paying below the minimum wage, I want to see the minimum wage
Well, you support closing that loophole then, which allows agency workers to pay less than the going rate.
The government are taking action to try and prosecute people who are
No, it's closing this loophole because you have employment agencies who are exploiting workers and forcing them to work for less than the going rate in particular industries.
Alan, what seats do you propose to win, or do you think you can win here in the East Midlands?
Well, the European elections are next, and obviously we have 5 candidates. I think we will win at least 2 and possibly 3.
What target seats? Amber Valley?
Amber Valley is a very interesting area, and I think that actually we can make some serious gains there, yes.
Worried about that, Nigel, Amber Valley with UKIP?
Well, I think people will see both, and I've been very strong on these issues. Europe and I voted for a referendum from the start of the Parliament. I have an amendment down when we get the immigration bill back on Thursday to try and restrict Romanian and Bulgarian migration, so I can stand on my record.
Is that because it plays well in your constituency?
Well, it's what my constituents are concerned about, but I think it's the right thing to do at a time when our economy is not that strong. We can't afford to let...
Well, whose fault's that?
Well, your party's actually. I mean, it was...
Well, the economy... hang on, Nigel. The economy was growing when the Tories came to power. What we found is as a consequence of the austerity measures that the coalition are pursuing.
Alan, you left Labour to go to UKIP.
Well, Alan obviously is misguided, and we've heard him today how misguided he continues to remain.
It was your party that triggered the worst recession.
You're not going to let him get away with that, are you? Surely.
Personal insults are not what people want to hear about. They want to hear about solutions. Mass immigration is a serious problem for this country.
OK. Well, Alan Graves, thank you very much for joining us in the studio.